What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Down in the Dirt podcast where we are getting dirty talking baseball. I am your host, Carson Lee, and as always, I want to thank you guys today for joining me for episode number 7 of the podcast. I'm very excited for today's episode as I am joined by Arizona Diamondbacks scout Chris Carminucci. In this episode, Chris and I talk about independent baseball, which is what I am currently playing and have been playing for the last 2 years. For those that do not know, independent baseball is still considered professional baseball and is just another route to continue playing for those that don't get drafted or get released from an affiliated club. Chris talks about the benefits of playing independent baseball. He talks about the scouting process and how organizations assess the different leagues and players and how each fit into their philosophy. Chris talks about what a scout is looking for and how to get signed. He also dives into the process of what happens once you do get signed by an affiliated club. This is an exciting episode because Chris really opens up to provide you guys with as much information as possible to get the most out of your career and the opportunities to continue playing professionally. I want to thank Chris for taking the time to come on, and I hope you guys enjoy. After the episode, be sure to check out Chris's Instagram page, and don't forget to check out his book, Sign Me, on Amazon. While you're at it, make sure you are subscribed to this podcast, the Down in the Dirt podcast. That way you get notifications whenever a new episode is released. Now on to the interview with Arizona Diamondbacks scout Chris Carminucci.
Guys, so I'm here with Chris Carminucci. Chris is a former ball player. He's also a former manager of 5 years, and now he is a current independent scout for the Arizona Diamondbacks, where he was just named Scout of the Year. Chris, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. Doing great. Good to be on.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate your time. So I want to start off. How did you get into scouting once your managing and playing career was over?
Yeah, it was kind of something I wasn't really necessarily looking to do. I was an independent league manager for a number of years. I had been a GM of independent leagues. I had owned a few of them and operated a few of them, and had just done everything kind of in the independent world that you could do. And the Diamondbacks called me one day, and Kevin Towers, who passed away this past year, had called me and said, "Hey, do you want to scout for us? We have an opening." And I was like, of course I'd love to. And, that was about roughly 8-10 years ago. And the road's been great, man. I started out just really scouting the independent leagues and the Mexican League. Now I scout the major leagues and minor leagues, and I oversee our independent league scouting as well, too. Cash Beecham is our scout on the ground. He does our everyday independent league scouting. I don't get to see many independent league games anymore, but I oversee the signing of our independent league players and the scouting department of that. We have our own kind of separate scouting department for it because we take the independent league so seriously. So to answer your question, I just kind of progressed into it, and it's been a lot of fun.
So when you were first getting into it, was it something that was kind of on your mind, or were you still looking to get into indie ball as far as front office GM or coaching still, or just kind of something that just fell into your lap, I guess?
Yeah, I was really done with managing and coaching an independent ball. Nothing wrong with it. Just had 3 kids and a wife, and I was more enjoying the ownership operating end of it. And we were working on a bunch of new cities to bring some independent league teams to it. And my independent league experience was always on both sides. It was both on managing and coaching, but also on the ownership and building up of independent leagues. And I worked with the great Miles Wolf and guys like that to really try to bring some new franchises to both the American Association and the Can-Am League. And it wasn't necessarily something that I was looking to get out of. I wasn't going to go back on the field again for a while, just because it wasn't a good time and timing for when you have a family. It's not easy.
Yeah, exactly. Having a family, I'm sure, makes it really difficult, especially when you just want to stay home and be with your wife and kids that you just had. But can you go into a little bit more detail? Obviously, being an independent scout, you're scouting the independent leagues, the independent players. But can you go into more detail of what a major league scout is? I think that might be something that people don't really realize, that there's actually guys at games that are actually actively scouting current major league players and then the minor league guys as well.
Yeah, no problem. And you're right. It's something that, people don't realize all the different facets of scouting. You have your amateur scouts, which, do the high school, college, and deal with the draft. I don't deal with the draft in any way. My job in general is to see major league teams, do that coverage, and also do affiliated minor league coverage. And really what that's for is we're looking for a couple different things. One is free agent value. Who might be coming down the pike that, won't be signed by that particular club, and who can we get? And then the other side of it is who can we trade for? And, we're making trades and talking about trades all the time. And I always joke and say that, 99% of what I do never comes to fruition because, trades generally don't happen. It takes a lot for them to happen. But, what I'm really doing is I'm looking for who can we trade for? Who's undervalued? That's a really big part of my job, is to try to find the undervalued player in the major leagues or in the minor leagues that maybe we could steal from another team. And we covet those moves. We're not a big market team. We need to be able to find the players that are maybe necessarily not in the plans of that particular major league team, and make a trade for them. And, obviously, like anything, we've got a poker face, and we want to try to get players for as little as we can and hopefully have as much upside as we can. So, that's really the function of my job, is to be out there, constantly be looking for undervalued talent, constantly be looking for who could we trade for, how can we better our team. One of the things that we do as a major league team, and most teams do this too, but we're always looking to get better. And that's why we do use the independent leagues as much as we do, by the way, because, we don't care where the player comes from. If we see a better player than what we have, whether that be a minor league or a major league player, heck, man, we're going to grab them. We're going to do everything we can to get them. So, that's the 99% of what I do these days is about that. Now, I'll cover some teams in Japan as well, too. I'll be over there. Again, same thing, looking for undervalued talent, looking for players that we can plug into either our minor league or our major league system. Same thing with Mexico, by the way. I do that too as well. And, we covet Mexico and foreign leagues in general, because, again, we want to leave no stone unturned. We want to try to do everything we can to find the players, find those diamonds in the rough that do exist. Now, that's something for your listeners to understand, is that, people think, with the internet and everything else, there's no secrets. That's freaking wrong. There are a ton of secrets, okay? And there are a ton of good players, and it's just about opportunity. The problem is there's not a lot of opportunity. And that's why I always tell guys, when you do get the chance with a major league organization, you got to dominate. You got to do what you can with what you have, or you're not going to last long. So, that's really the function of my job, what I do these days. And I love it, man. I mean, there's nothing better than, going to a new city. I'm in Grand Rapids right now. I'm seeing the A-ball club for the Cleveland Indians, and they've got a good club. And I'm looking at what they have and trying to figure out, if something does come down the pike, what do we do?
Yeah, that's a lot of information you just covered right there off the bat. That's awesome. It's funny you say that comment about diamond in the rough, because when I was doing my research, one of the articles I read on you, that was like the first line in the paragraph that said, about how you had the ability to find diamonds in the rough. So that's pretty awesome. But can you kind of touch, when you're scouting these guys, do you have a feel for who may be available or who may be a free agent, or is it kind of just looking at everybody that's out there playing?
Well, it's a great question. And first of all, it starts out, you want to find out who are the players you like, okay? And then you take the players you don't like, you put them in a bucket. And then you take the players you do like and you put them in a bucket. And then from that player bucket of the players you like, you try to then find out, hey, how much does this organization covet them? Are they planning on bringing him back? Will they trade him? If they'll trade him, how much will they trade him for? Or what are they looking in return? A lot of major league teams overvalue what they have. They don't spend enough time on, coveting what they have necessarily. And a lot of times you can grab a guy. You can really, come in and find that guy that maybe is, and again, I use that term all the time, is undervalued, because, again, the idea of finding undervalued players and finding diamonds in the rough, it's that same thing. It's one man's trash is another man's treasure, so, and for lack of a better term, man, I look for trash all over the place, man, to try to because, that's part of the game that I love. And, look, Major League Baseball players, they're all freaking good, okay? And they all have their place within a major league team. But who necessarily fits in better with your particular organization is really the key. And that's the tough thing that we have to find out is who are the best fits. And we call them pieces of the puzzle. Who are the best players that fit in either in the minor leagues or the major leagues for what we need right now. And, again, if you keep an open mind, and, a lot of scouts don't necessarily keep an open mind, they think, and a lot of organizations, by the way, don't keep an open mind when they should. They think because a player was something 5 years ago, well, he's still that guy. No, players change every freaking day. Players or scouts have to realize that players are constantly evolving, and just because a player at 22 was not very good, that doesn't mean at 25, 26 he can't catch lightning in a bottle and get to the big leagues. He certainly can.
Wow, that's awesome. That's it's cool that you touched on that age gap, because I think a lot of people think that the younger when you're younger that you have so much more potential, and don't realize as you're still playing in these independent leagues that once you get older, 27, 28, you still have a chance to get picked up. Now, it may be smaller, but you still have that chance to get into an affiliated organization. And like you said, get lightning in a bottle, have one good year, one good run, and still have a chance to get to the big leagues if there's a need that team has. But when you said that there's certain things you like, you have your bucket of guys you do like, guys you don't like. Is that what kind of determines that? Is that more of a organizational philosophy, or is that just kind of your interpretation of the player, your scouting breakdown of the player? What determines that?
It's kind of twofold. It's yes, we have our organizational or organizational idea of who will fit in the best, but that's a pretty wide gamut. Okay, and then when I'm looking for tools, I'm looking for upside, I'm looking for that player that again, when you take them out of the environment that they're in, that they may not necessarily be excelling at, what can they do with it? And, that comes down a lot of times to makeup. We as scouts don't necessarily like to talk about makeup because, it's one of those things that's, it's subject to whoever perceives it. And, I will tell you this is I'm a big proponent of finding really strong makeup players. And again, that's why I love the independent leagues. It's because you got to have strong makeup and you got to have fortitude and stick-to-itiveness to be able to survive an independent ball. Believe me, I know. I was on those bus rides. I get it. You know what I mean? I understand. Let me tell you, I look at it now and I love traveling in first class now because I was on a lot of long bus rides and everything else for a lot of years, and I appreciated it all. But, normally guys that come out of independent ball or guys that weren't necessarily bonus babies, they're hungry, man. And, for lack of a better word, they want to shove it up somebody's butt, man. And that's the kind of idea you have to have, and kind of attitude you have to make it. And so, to answer your question in the best form I can, you're looking for better players than what you have, but you're also looking for players that just will not take no for an answer. Okay. That, they will just will themselves to the big leagues. Now, will alone won't get you there. Okay, I tell guys that all the time. You could want it more than anybody else, but that alone is not going to get you there. It's got to be a combination of will, talent, and opportunity. And I think some players a lot of times they think they want it. They think they really want it. And I'll get calls all the time from guys that get released out of AAA or AA, and they'll say, "Man, I really want to get to the big leagues." And I'll say, "Well, go to independent ball, do that." And they'll say, "Oh, I don't want to go there." And then I say, "No, you really don't want it, brother. You just think you want it. You like the idea of wanting it. You don't really want it. If you really wanted it, you'd scratch and claw and do whatever you can to get to that next level. And sometimes it takes going 3 steps backwards to take 1 step forward. And that's the idea that I look for in players, is that they're really hungry. You got to find hungry players.
It's funny you say that, because I've kind of come across the same situation through my career also. I started in the Pecos League, and I'm sure you know all about the Pecos League and how rough, just what a grind it is, with the travel and then the games and whatnot. And I've had friends that, have talked about playing, and, they kind of talk to me about the Pecos League, and they say, "Oh, well, I don't want to do that. I'm better than that." And I tell them, like, "Man, if you really want to play, you will take the opportunity to play and go play and run with it. And, if you think you're better than the Pecos League, then play yourself out of it. There's a reason you didn't get drafted. There's a reason you didn't get signed as a free agent. So if that's the case, go in the Pecos League and get yourself out of it, put up numbers to get out of it." So I've kind of come across that same thing that you have, on your side with scouting guys that get released. But what I didn't realize that you said there at the beginning of your comment was that when you're scouting these guys, you're still looking for tools. I really kind of was under the interpretation that I guess the tools aspect was more of a high school and college kind of thing when you still have that growth. And once you get into independent ball, it's more of sheer numbers and kind of just a need thing at that time. I didn't realize that it was all still kind of a tools and development.
Yeah, it is. And, let me say this is you look for development, I would say, more when I'm looking at, say, a major league player who's young or a minor league player who's on the younger side. OK, because, they still have time to develop. Normally, there's a little bit of an age gap. A 22-year-old player still has a few years to be able to turn into what he's going to turn into. When it comes to independent ball, sometimes, I still look for tools, and I tell our independent league scout Cash Beecham all the time, get me the most toolsy guys you can, because those are the guys typically with the most upside. But at the same time, is you also got to be game ready when you come out of independent ball, because again, there's not the idea that hey, we're going to develop you. Normally, it's we're going to throw you into the fire. You damn well better produce. And if you do, there's a 50-50 chance you're even going to stay around, or even less, so it ain't easy. So at the same time is, I don't sugarcoat it that, that teams, when they sign an independent player, they're going to use and abuse them. Okay. They are. Okay. We're going to do the same damn thing. Now, we're not doing that to hurt anybody or anything else, but we have a need. You're getting the opportunity to fill it. Now you need to go out and take advantage of it and fill that need. Again, I want to be sure you understand this, because it's something that, teams don't sit there and say, I'm going to hurt a player, I'm going to do this. But no, they're going to ask you to take the ball, probably more times than you took the ball when you were an independent ball if you're a reliever. They're going to ask you to go a few extra innings sometimes to save a bullpen if you're a starter. If you're a catcher, you may have to catch every day, and not get any time off. So, it's really one of those things where, yes, we're looking to develop. And we're looking to find the best players available. But at the same time is, we'll be a little more patient with an affiliated guy than we will be with an independent guy, because you got to be more game ready coming out of the independent leagues.
Yeah, exactly. And do you put any value onto, I guess, independent guys that have a certain number of ABs versus, say a guy that's 1 or 2 years in independent ball versus a guy that's 5 or 6 years deep in independent ball and may have 2,000 or 3,000 ABs, and he may even be at the upper echelon of independent in the American or Can-Am Association, versus a guy that, say just out of college and he's in the USPBL, the United Shore League, or if he's in the Frontier, maybe has a 500 at bats. Is there any kind of a difference that goes into that, or is it still more just kind of what kind of tools the player has?
It's a combination. I'd be lying to you if I told you that stats don't matter. They do. They absolutely do. Normally, the stats are the thing that piques our interest, okay? And then from there, it becomes scouting. And then from there, after you scout the player, it's a combination of metrics and scouting, okay? You kind of combine the two. And to answer your question a little more in depth, we're looking for those players that have played a long time, we're looking for blips in the screen, okay? We're looking for, well, this player hit 212 in A ball, but then he goes to the American Association or the Frontier League or the American Association or the Can-Am or whatever, or the Atlantic League, and hits 290. What happened? What did he change? Who did he work with? We may want to hire that hitting coach you work with. You never know, So we look for those things in the screen that, because again, players do change, but over a period of time, players do tend to become what they're going to become. But those blips in the screen, those changes in a guy, really are things that we look for. So, yeah, and to answer your question is, we absolutely value the 4 top independent leagues the most. Okay, you look at the American Association, you look at the Can-Am League, you look at the Atlantic League, and you look at the Frontier League. Those are kind of tops on our list always. Okay. And then from there, you have that up-and-coming league, the USPBL, which is really doing a nice job with a 4-team league they have and developing some nice players. Then from there, you look at the Pecos League, okay? And, the biggest thing the Pecos League has going against it normally is the ballparks are tough to play in. So the offensive numbers are a little skewed, and sometimes the pitching numbers are therefore a little skewed. So, we do take the league into consideration. But, shoot, if a player's putting up big numbers in, say, the Pecos League, and I won't go see, but if Cash Beecham goes see and sees him, says, we really like this guy, we'll normally call the kid and say, listen, why don't you try to get over to the American Association or Frontier League or Atlantic League or Can-Am, and because we want to see you there. And we'll normally use some of our connections to try to help the player. Can't always do it, because the teams, control themselves, but we'll normally make a call for them just to see if we can get them into a better league, because again, that's what's going to get them out of there. And players come out of the Pecos League all the time. They come out of all these leagues now, because independent ball is not a secret anymore. And thank freaking God it's not a secret anymore, because I went through years and years and years of, listen, I've had arguments with people in the Major League Baseball front office, okay, in the commissioner's office, all the way down to scouts at games who don't take the independent ball seriously. This is a real thing. This isn't, somebody playing in their backyard. This isn't rec league. This isn't a beer league, okay? This is really good baseball, and actually baseball at its purest, because, again, like I said before, you have to go from an independent league into an organization and be able to play right away. There's not a lot of time for development. So that's what makes independent ball real. And, some players make it, some players don't. You look at probably the most famous player to ever come out of independent baseball, who I signed, David Peralta, okay? He was a freaking left-handed pitcher with the St. Louis Cardinals. Never hit before. He's playing in the American Association, and I keep getting calls from different managers in the American Association saying, you got to come look at this kid. I go see him, and he goes 0 for 12 the first time I see him. I said, listen, I got to come back and see him because he didn't do anything, And then I work him out at a tryout camp at one of Nick Belmonte's workouts down in Florida, and I like him, and we sign him. And next thing you know, he's hitting 285 with 30 home runs, and he's a borderline all-star every single year. So we have, just to speak to this, we have 2 guys right now on our 40-man roster that came out of the independent leagues: Ildemaro Vargas, David Peralta. Okay. One hits 2 in our lineup. The other one hits 3 in our lineup. Okay. Both of those guys were literally traveling by bus, one in the American Association, one in the Atlantic League, as 5-6 years ago. It didn't take long for those guys. They got their opportunity. They made the best out of it, and they got to the big leagues. And, we've got a ton of guys in our system now that are going to get there too. Whether they're going to be David Peralta and Ildemaro Vargas, we'll see. That's up to them, because this is where the biggest part comes in. The heart, the hustle, the desire, all those things, they have it, okay? You can't teach that necessarily. We'll see if these other guys have it. We'll see if these, David Peralta is a great story because, we put him in at high A and he hit right away. We put him in at double A, he hit right away, okay? I would be calling our office all the time and saying, listen, we got to get this guy to the big leagues. He deserves it. He deserves it. Tony La Russa, who's my boss at the time, goes to Mobile, Alabama 5 years ago and sees him, go 4 for 6 in a doubleheader and says, why isn't this guy in the big leagues? And I said, I agree. And then, Pollock goes down with a wrist injury. And next thing you know, David Peralta's in the big leagues and never stopped, never went back again. And, those are the stories that, warm my heart, because I love to see those guys when they get the opportunity, make the best of it. Doesn't happen for everybody, but like guys like him and Ildemaro Vargas, they're a big part of a contending, close to first place team right now, which is pretty special.
Man, you just threw a lot in there that I love. That whole comment, the heart and hustle thing, man, it takes you a lot farther than what people realize if you have that grit and determination. And then, along with the independent leagues, guys don't realize. What I've come across is that people really still don't understand independent ball and what it is, and that it is actually professional baseball. And kind of now, being in it for a few years, I've also noticed that it's a place for a lot of guys that went to small schools to continue playing, because, being at a small school, they may not necessarily gotten as many looks. They still may have gotten looks, but maybe just not as many as a guy that's, in the SEC or ACC. So it's the chance for them to continue playing, continue their career, and they're just as good as everybody else that's out there. So that's the awesome thing about independent ball. It's just it's a place for everybody to get an opportunity, and like you said, put up the numbers and get yourself out of there. But so now, what's the process like? This is my own curiosity, but what's the process like when you sign a guy out of an independent league that kind of determines where he starts off? Whether that be high A, double A, triple A. What's that process like? I guess it's probably just another development thing, kind of where he is along the curve.
Yeah, it's more so who we sign is based upon our specific needs. Okay. So example, we have a if we have a need in say A ball, low A ball or high A ball, shoot, man, we'll start with the Frontier League. You know, I mean, we'll jump right in, rookie ball, you know, that level. We'll jump right in and really try to scour the Frontier League because it's the younger players who, by the way, you hit it on the head right there. A lot of players in the smaller colleges don't get scouted enough. Okay, and I think the Frontier League is so good because it finds those type players. I was one of those players. It was the only difference. So I went to LaGrange College, okay, got my opportunity to play an independent ball, and I hit 178. So I wasn't good enough to play, okay? So, but it gave me my opportunity to figure that out, okay? So, you know, if we have a need at the lower levels, normally we start with the Frontier League, start with the USPBL, and then we kind of go from there. You know, AA needs, we'll go more to the American Association, Atlantic League, even some higher A ball leagues. But again, this is the thing. It's survival of the fittest, brother. We are looking for the best players available. And I'm the one guy that'll sit there and say, I don't give a crap if we gave that guy $2.8 million. There is a guy in the Frontier League right now, or the guy in the American Association that is 10 times better than this kid and has more upside. And, you know, a lot of people get sick and tired of hearing me say that, but it happens, okay? We're scouts. We're human. We make errors, okay? We certainly, you know, amateur scouts, pro scouts, all of us, we don't always get it right. So what we have to do is be man enough to be able to say, hey, this player is better than what we have. And when we do that and we find a player, we plug him in right away. Now, from an independent league standpoint, 9 times out of 10, that player is getting the opportunity simply because we have a hole to fill. You don't have a lot of extra players all the time just sitting there, you know, and sitting in extended and all that. You don't have a lot. And especially game-ready players. A lot of the younger players, you don't want to rush them. You don't want to send an 18-year-old kid to AAA if he's not ready. It'll kill his confidence. Why not grab a kid out of independent ball, throw him in there, and if he does well, hey, shoot, we got something. If he doesn't do well, you send him home. You know, but at least he got the opportunity. You know, and that's more than he had before.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize how cutthroat it is. Just like you just said, if he goes to AAA and sucks, then you know he goes home, and now he's left back to square one, you know, without a job. I don't think people realize that. Yeah, that a lot of people think people realize it's you actually have to show up and perform every single day because your job is on the line. And you know, if you don't perform, then you're going home. But
and sometimes how would you perform really well and you still don't stay around, and that's the tough part. That's the tough pill to swallow. And sometimes you can do everything right in this game and you still go home, and you know that's tough. You know, because the organization may feel like you're not as good still, even though you put up the numbers that somebody that's younger than you or even got more money than you or whatever you know can do. You know, that's where I come in normally, and I'm fighting and clawing and yelling, you know, that we need to give this player an opportunity. But it's not a fair game. It's not personal, but it certainly isn't fair, man. And you know, that's a tough part of the game.
Yeah. Well, what kind of goes against that? I guess if you put up numbers and they're still saying you're not good enough, what kind of is the theory behind that? Where does that kind of come from?
You know, it's opinion based most of the time. You know, It's basically that, you know, and you know, normally people see what they want to see. So it's really hard to convince most teams that the player they gave $3 million to is not as good as the kid who's playing in Joliet right now. Okay. You know, and you know, it takes some persuading, and it sometimes you got to be, you know, fierce about it, you know, and believe me, I've had my fair share of having to stand up for players over the years. And, you know, I listen, if I believe in a player, I'm going to put my name on them, and I'm going to fight within our organization to get him as far as he can possibly take himself. But if a player doesn't hold up his end of the bargain, and believe me, I know they don't do it on purpose, but then he deserves to go home. You know what I mean? So, you know, that's the part of it. And again, it's so cutthroat. It's so tough. It's not mean, but it's certainly tough.
Exactly. How would you say that scouting has changed over the last few years, you know, with the growth of analytics and exit velos and spin rates and all those kind of things? How has that changed your job and what you're looking for?
You know, it's done nothing but enhance and help. Okay. And I'll say this, when you have an organization like the Diamondbacks, they don't sit there and say, we're going to use analytics over our scouts' opinions. Okay. What they say is, here are the analytics, fellas. use it as a tool to make the best hypothesis from this. And, that's really where it comes in, is that, so it hasn't changed anything. It's made me a better scout. It's made me be able to go back, and we talked about it before, trends. Okay. Why did this player all of a sudden, do better here? Well, his launch angle changed. Okay. Or, he's always been a high spin rate guy, but he wasn't doing the things he needed to do to be able, location wise, to be able to get to the next level. So I love information. I write 15 reports a day. That's what, we on this side of it, we got to write reports all the time. And, you need the analytical backing of things to be able to sometimes formulate opinion. Now, there's other times where you look at a player, you know what he is, you know who he will be, and you feel pretty darn sure of it. But you still look at the analytics because you want to cover all the bases. So, from my perspective, I think it's only helped. I think it's only enhanced. I think it's only going to continue to enhance. But I'll say this, it's because of the way our organizational philosophy is that, that's not, the analytics aren't first. The scouts are first. The analytics come in as a helper to the scouts. But some organizations don't. Some organizations will say, we don't even need scouts because we're just going to use analytics. That's not. Listen. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but something my mother told me, which still holds true. If you put all your eggs in one basket, you're in trouble. So don't put all your eggs in any one basket, and try to use what's around you, the tools that you have to be able to be the best you can be. And that's really what analytics has done for me. And by the way, where it's changed is it's actually made report writing a lot easier because you have something to back you up. You can draw on, hey, this guy was an organizational player only, not a big leaguer, even an up and down guy. But here's what changed. And you could say in 2015, he worked with a hitting coach and he changed his launch angle. And, this is what's better for him. Or he learned the slider, he learned the changeup. He now throws a split. Something and this is a term that your listeners need to understand. As scouts, we're looking for one thing. It's a separator. It's something that separates you from the pack. Okay. And sometimes analytics helps you find that separator if it's there. Okay. Or sometimes analytics helps you find something that scouts think is a separator is really just a mirage. Okay. It really isn't there. Okay. He was getting lucky at the level he was at. And I hate to say, luck falls into it, but sometimes, players get by with subpar stuff and, then you look at the analytical side of it and they're like, no, it doesn't add up. This guy isn't what he is. So, it's a combination of things, and analytics are a great part of this game. I'm telling you, and it's something that every youngster should learn. And I know it's not the most popular thing in the world with some of the older scouts, but at the same time, they're even learning to utilize it. And as long as it's not jammed down your throat, it's a good thing.
It's funny you use the word separator, because I remember when I was in high school and even kind of getting into college, that was the biggest thing I used to always hear was, be the guy that's running a 6'3", or a guy that's hitting 10 of 10 home runs in BP, because those are the things that they really catch in your eye and can really just a guy can see that versus every other guy that's running an average 60 or hitting line drives in the gap and kind of falls into the pack. So it's funny you use that term. But what I guess kind of going to a younger generation for like a high school kid or a college guy, what kind of things could they do to get scouted by an amateur scout? For someone that is aspiring to get drafted, what kind of things could they do to make sure that they do get seen when they're playing their high school games or their college games to stand out to those guys?
Well, tools are a big thing we talked about before, but I'm going to start with that, okay? Because, there's no substitute for tools, okay? So a young player must, and I mean must, try to develop his skills early, okay? Get as strong as arm as possible, be as athletic as possible, get have as much power as possible. Those are normal things. And by the way, let me say this: so many players run the 60-yard well, but we don't really care about the 60 when you get to the minor league and major league level. We care about your time from home to first. We don't even run the 60 in professional tryouts. So, a player, what they need to do is, I guess they need to be able to run the 60 because that's what an amateur scout looks at. But more importantly, learn how to run from home plate to first base fast. That's what we want. And, be able to cut corners around the bases well and be able to cut those bases well. Those are things that will only, make you, more of a well-rounded player. And the thing that young players can do is, and this is something that is not talked about enough, but, how much, what a good, the level of which their personality is and what their makeup is and what kind of person there is, that's something you can really control. Okay. And, I see sometimes young kids on social media making dumb comments and things like that. They need to really be well-rounded. Okay. So developing their tools, being as good a person as possible. And, I'm going to say something that probably isn't popular with some of the parents, but, a lot of times these young kids, they'll go to the school that their parents wanted them to go to. And what do? They're going to, sit on the bench for 2, 3, 4 years and not really get their opportunity. My feeling is a young player, the only way they're going to develop is to go and play. Okay. You're not going to develop, from your couch. Okay. We always say that as well, too. Or from the bench, you're not going to be the best player you can be when you're not playing. So go somewhere you can play. Exposure is better at the higher levels. That is true. Okay. But still 90% of guys are seeing these days. Okay. Scouts get out there. Video is a big part of it. So all those things that I just mentioned are things that the youngsters can do. But, one thing they don't do enough of, in my opinion, these days, okay, is a lot of players become practice players, okay, where they, got so used to trying out, so used to being in, practice or showcase environments that they don't really bring it to the game, okay? And, game savvy, okay, instincts, knowing how to play the game is something you can only develop by playing the game, okay, in a game format, okay? It doesn't necessarily come by, being a showcase player. So, another thing I can tell you is play as many games as you can, as a youngster. Play as many games as you can, actual real games in your backyard against your friends that you can, because I don't think that happens enough either, So, just, running the 60 and, throwing from right field and everybody going to shortstop and throwing it, it's gotten completely too much of an institutionalized way of doing things. You got to really go out there and play, and that's my biggest pet peeve when it comes to younger guys is they don't play enough.
There's 2 things I want to touch on off that comment, but the first one is, like you said, go somewhere where you're going to play, because I get asked that a lot, too. Just from younger guys looking for advice to where they should go or how they should handle their recruiting process. And that's what I say. Go to a school where you can play. Go to a junior college if that gives you a chance to play right away, or go to a smaller 4-year university, because it does good if you go somewhere and you're on the bench for 2 or 3 years and you're not playing and you're just practicing every day. Not getting those game reps does good. Guys don't realize, and I think this is where independent ball comes in so useful for this, is that guys don't realize that they can go play these smaller schools, and even if they're not getting seen as much as they would in the SEC or ACC, like I said, those big schools, they can go play independent ball, and they can use those college numbers to get them into independent leagues, and then they still have a chance to play professional baseball, develop, and then obviously get seen by affiliate organization later on. But I want to get your opinion on this, because this is actually something I saw this as a tweet where I can't remember who it was, but he was a well-respected guy in the baseball community, and he said that the difference between a Latin player and American player was that the Latins play games 6 days a week and practice 1 day a week, whereas an American player will practice 5 days out of the week and play 2 days out of the week. Did I say that right? Yeah, I think I did. So what was your opinion on that? Because I know that kind of just goes off what you just said about guys being showcase players and kind of the institutional, idea that you have to do these showcases, all this kind of stuff, instead of just getting out there, rolling the balls out and playing every day.
Yeah, no, it's exactly right. And, it's something we don't do enough here in the States. They need to go out there and play. Practice is great. Okay. But I implore, especially college coaches and, AAU coaches and all that stuff. If you can't play a game that day, simulate a game, okay, inter squad as much as you can. Make it as much about simulating a live game as possible, because if you don't, you're just going to develop guys that are robots, and we don't want robots. We got guys that understand the game, understand how to run the bases. There's a heck of a lot more to this game than just throwing and hitting. Okay, there's a whole nuance of the game that you have to develop, and it takes time to develop that. And the only way, in my opinion, that you can develop that is through playing games. So I agree. Whoever tweeted that out was very smart. Good job on their part.
Yeah, I wish I remember who it was so I could give them the credit, but it's been a few months, and it was just something that came to mind whenever you made that comment. But I only have a few more questions for you, but before we get on to those last few questions, I do want to give you a chance to talk about your book that you just came out with. It's called Sign Me, an Undrafted Ball Player's Guide to the Independent Leagues. You just released it not too long ago. I want to give you a chance to talk about that, what we can find inside that, and basically how it should be a ball player's Bible that they should just take everywhere with them, with all the information that they need.
I appreciate that. What happened for me was I got sick and tired of explaining how good the independent leagues were to college coaches or to other major league teams. And inevitably, I'd get a call every year that, a college coach would say to me, hey, my player didn't get drafted. What should he do? Well, what you should do is you should go play independent ball. And, I just got really frustrated with the whole way that people were viewing independent ball. And, thankfully I'm in a position now where I can speak to about independent league baseball, and people actually listen. When I was in independent ball speaking about it, it was like, oh, here's just another nut who's talking about their own thing. But now that I'm kind of removed from independent baseball and on the major league side of things, I can talk to it in a way that, listen, it deserves its respect. It deserves its props. And, the book is not only worth it for the player that doesn't get drafted, out of college. It's also for the player that's currently playing independent baseball, because in there it gives you ways to get signed, how best to showcase yourself. Sometimes I'm a little in your face in the book, you know what I mean? Because a lot of players, think it's going to be easy, and it's not. I'm in your face a lot to the college coaches about, hey, why are you telling your player not to go to the independent leagues? You're only hurting your player. But it's also for the player that gets released, whether it be out of the big leagues, AAA, AA, or down, because they've got to understand what independent baseball is all about. And it's a great option, okay? It's not always perfect, okay? It's not always perfectly run, and it's not without its flaws, but it is a great place to showcase yourself and get the opportunity to get to the next level. So, I had this idea to write the book, and I was approached by a publisher, and, from there, Cecil Fielder jumped on board, Steve Delabar jumped on board, and Pete Incaviglia jumped on board, who all either were in independent leagues and got to the big leagues, or vice versa, were in the big leagues and then managed an independent ball. So it just the book shows the level of respect that I have for in the independent leagues. It also shows you how to utilize the independent leagues, how to get into the independent leagues, who to call, the money that you can anticipate to make, because that's a misnomer a lot of times. People don't realize, they think, oh my God, I'm going to, make all this money in independent ball. I'm not going to make crap in independent ball, but that's not the point. The point is to, is to get to the next level. And, it also, what I talk about a lot in the book is about enjoying the process. It's not always easy to enjoy the process when you're living on the floor with 18 guys, you know what I mean, in a 2-bedroom house. Okay. And I've been there too, but you've got to be able to respect the process, enjoy the process. And, listen, if the only thing you ever do is play independent baseball, that is an incredible accomplishment. Okay. And that is a step above going to, a really good college or playing Division I, II, or III college baseball. You became a professional. Okay. You're one of the elite. And, so I give a lot of guys a lot of credit in this book about, their trials and tribulations, about how, what you have to go through to be able to make it. And, I'm very, very proud of the book, because it's something that, has been really well received. It's sold thousands of books in a very short amount of time. And, one of the things I wanted to do was to support the Scouts Foundation with MLB. So the proceeds for the book go to the Scouts Foundation, because, there's a lot of older scouts out there that weren't around in the days where we actually make good money now doing what we do. So they were hurting for a time, and they developed this Major League Scouting charity to be able to help them. So, we're giving back in that way and trying to help out. And, I couldn't be more proud of the book. It's available on Amazon, and you just type in "Sign Me" and it comes up. And, obviously I'm biased, but I'm going to tell you this, is that it's helped so many people already, and it's going to continue to help people because it's not Shakespeare, brother. You know what I mean? It's not, I'm not sitting there, I would be lying if I said that it was really well written. No, it's a fact by fact way of doing this. It's in your face. It answers questions you have. It tells you, what you need to do. And listen, we all need a kick in the butt sometimes, when we're playing. I need a kick in the butt after, 250 days on the road scouting. Sometimes I need to smack myself in the face and wake myself up. You know what I mean? So, this book is a little bit of a slap in the face, a wake me up. And it's also a tribute to everybody that's ever been involved in independent leagues, because, don't let Major League Baseball bully anybody by putting down independent ball. That's a bunch of bull. Okay. It's a great level of baseball. It's a level of baseball that's real, and it's only going to get better. And, the major league teams that don't scout it are idiots. Okay. They're morons for not going out there and trying to sign players out of it. Okay. Now, those teams are few and far between now, because most major league teams utilize the independent leagues in some capacity. Maybe not as much as we do, but most teams do utilize it and respect it. So, again, it's called Sign Me. I'm super proud of it, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
Not a problem. I'm thankful that you were willing to put the information out there to help guys like, me and my peers, my teammates, to help us get out of independent leagues, but also, like you said, enjoy the journey, that even if this is ultimately all we do, but enjoy that journey along the way. Because I like to believe that it is about the journey. It's not about the end destination, but it's about the journey you go through, the memories you get to make, the games you play, and the cool places you get to go. So I appreciate you taking the time to write that book. Just give your insight from your scouting expertise to put that in there and help guys that are playing, guys that are, be rookies and start playing, and then guys that obviously are at the tail ends of their careers and trying to figure out how to stay in the game. So thank you for that. And definitely going to have to go check it out and get one myself and see what I can learn from it. But to finish off the show, I just have 3 social media questions from a few of my followers that I want to ask you. So the first one comes from @Jasper_K14. He asked, he's actually from the Netherlands. So this is where he's given love from the Netherlands. He says, what are you looking at when you're scouting a pitcher?
Yeah, that's a great question. And by the way, Netherlands is probably one of the most beautiful places on for him. When scouting a pitcher, you start with velocity. Okay. And again, most scouts won't tell you that they'll try to shun the velocity. The radar gun does matter. Okay. You've got to have some velo to be able to get hitters out. Okay. But after that, it's stuff. Okay. And pitchability. It's, and again, if we're talking independent league baseball player right now, we're looking for a guy that has not only, plus 90 stuff, okay, which everybody seems to have these days, but he has pitchability. He throws strikes, okay. He can hit spots. He can utilize the entire strike zone, all right. And again, I'll go back to this. And he pitches with some balls. You got to, okay, because there's several guys that I'll go out and see that are high profile guys. The minute they get hit, they fold like dish towels, okay. I don't want that guy on my team. I don't want that guy around me. I want the guy that's going to get hit, going to say, you know what, I'm going to come back for more. And, I'm going to show you what I got. I'm going to make an adjustment. Okay. And that's like we were talking about before. Instincts, adjustments, those are only things you can get by playing and pitching and all that stuff. But, to answer the person's question, it's yes, it's about velo. It's about stuff. It's about pitchability. And it's about being able to throw strikes and command the zone.
Awesome. That's good stuff right there. I definitely, especially when you're on the mound, you got to be a bulldog. You can't crumble under pressure. So I love that you said that. But the next one comes from @JWilliams_22, Josh Williams. He says, is it true that the most independent players are signed out of the Frontier League?
You know what? I think it changes year to year, okay? But I'm going to say this, is that the Frontier League's right up there. I think early in the season, simply because of the level of play and the fact that they start earlier, the Atlantic League gets a lot of players signed early, okay? And they're normally older players with Major League experience or high-level experience. Then after that, I'll say the Frontier League and the American Association really, battle it out for how many players get picked up. One of the things that people have to realize is those 4 leagues that I keep talking about, they're successful because they get good players and because the players shine, but also because they're managers, okay? Guy like Jeff Isom, guys like Pete Incaviglia, they get on the phone and they call guys like me and say, listen, you got to come sign this guy, okay? You got to come see this guy. He's really good. They're constantly pushing their players. And, it didn't used to be that way years ago in independent ball because nobody wanted to lose their players. They wanted to keep them and try to win for their cities, which I get too. But listen, independent ball should be about getting your players out, not keeping them there. And, so I think the Frontier League is right up there. They do such a great job with promoting their players, getting out there and really wearing it as a badge of honor that their players get signed a lot. And I think Bill Lee, Steve Tassler, they do such a great job in that league. So it wouldn't surprise me if this year they had the most. You just never know it because it changes every year.
Yeah, and I know Josh is going to be in Evansville. I played against him in college, and now we're both in the Frontier League together. So he's going to be in Evansville. So he wanted me to ask that question. But the last one is going to be
Andy McCauley, one of the best managers ever in independent baseball. So believe me, he's amazing over there in Evansville. So we signed a lot of guys out of Evansville over the years. So
he's in good hands then.
By the way, but I didn't even make the club back in '96. I got released out of spring training, so there you go.
The last one I have for you, it's from @Cortesas, Justin Cortesas, who's also been one of my teammates. He said, "What is the main difference you've seen between an affiliated guy and a guy that's in independent ball?"
So, normally the reason a guy gets to independent ball out of an organization is, it's the normal, hey, maybe he wasn't good enough, maybe he didn't put up good stats. But there are a few guys that, maybe had some personality defects that needed a kick in the face and a kick in the teeth to be able to go to independent ball. I'll say this. I think there's more velocity in organizations than there are in independent league teams that I see. Okay. But let me say this, there's also a heck of a lot of pitchability. And again, I'm talking from a pitcher standpoint in independent ball. And I think where the guys who are in affiliated ball, they have the velo, they have the pitchability, and they've been able to get the time. Sometimes it's just time, by the way, to be able to hone their skills. And, from an independent league standpoint, it's about winning, as we know. You know what I mean? You got to go out there and you got to win. So you don't always have that time to completely develop yourself. So, the road is different for everybody when it comes to why they got released or why they're an independent ball or not. But, a lot of times they just didn't get the opportunity. They didn't get enough at bats. They didn't get listen, if a guy got 600 at bats and, hit 200, he deserved to get released, and I said it before, I deserved to get released. I didn't have what it took, but at least I got to answer that question. So, the road is different for everybody. And it's just a matter of what you take from what you're doing and how much you can do with it. And I've known guys, by the way, who have really struggled in A-ball, have gone to independent baseball, figured it out, and then gone to AAA in the big leagues and done well. So again, I'll say it. I'm going to end it with the way I started the show. Just because you were one way at 22, don't think you're going to be a different way at 25. And you know what? If anybody tells you to quit, and it's not in your heart to quit, tell them to go screw off, okay? Because you're still playing, And continue to play the game. Continue to, live on the couch if you have to. Do what you can to live out the dream. Because let me tell you, I'll speak from experience on this. Because I see a lot of guys that are doctors and lawyers right now, and they're in their 50s and they're miserable, and they wish they could still play. So, play it as long as you possibly can. Get the most out of it. Enjoy every minute of it.
Real quick, I know I said we were going to end the show, but something that just popped up in my head. Like I said, I want to respect your time, but for those guys that are getting to the end, maybe they're losing opportunities in independent ball. What do you think about opportunities overseas as far as playing like Czech Republic, Germany, Australia? Those leagues that are more, I guess, kind of their club teams. Maybe the competition isn't as well, but they're still looking to play and possibly get into maybe back into independent ball or back into affiliated ball. What do you think about that option? I mean, obviously it's a chance to play, but what is like the realistic opportunities that come from that as far as, professional baseball over here in the States?
let me first start with, Mexico, China, Korea, all that stuff. You get the opportunity to go there. You're going to make good money, you go, okay? And it's well scouted. So those are kind of a different animal. But when you're talking about going over to Europe, Italy, I ran an Italian Baseball Federation team many years ago in the IBL, and it was an awesome experience. I've been to the Czech Republic many times. I've seen the players over there. I've been all over Europe to see the players. When you decide to go to Europe, you need to think of it more as a life experience, okay? Not necessarily as an opportunity where you're going to be scouted or you're going to get signed out of it, okay? Because it's not very well scouted in any way, okay? So what you need to do is you need to say, am I at the point in my career where it's about enjoyment, it's about getting at bats or getting innings, but it's also about doing it in a place that I will never get to come to again, really, or play in this environment, because you're treated so well. Typically all those teams are really, really good to you. And it's a tremendous experience. So I'm all for it, but you have to be real with yourself and say, am I at a point in my career where I'm willing to give up a year of potentially getting to the big leagues? Because I know where my career is going. I know I could still play, but I'm not going to get to the big leagues. Listen, I knew myself, I was not going to get to the big leagues. I wasn't good enough. So what I did was I took every opportunity to learn the game and be around as many people as I could. And, going overseas just makes you more, well cultured and gives you an opportunity to be able to learn the game and different aspects. And, learning to live in a foreign country a lot of times is a real character builder. And it also makes you realize how well we have it here. And, but Europe in general, it's beautiful. So I've seen guys go to Mexico and sometimes the Dominican and places like that and fold like dish towels because they can't handle it. But Australia is great too, by the way, and it's good level of play. So listen, you just got to be real with yourself and know the timing of it. If you're 30, 31, 32, and you're not going to get to the big leagues any longer, I always say go. Okay, do it. Go get the opportunity, enjoy it. But if you still feel like you have it in you to get to the big leagues, and you need to try to play in the States first.
Awesome, good stuff. Well, Chris, I want to thank you for coming on. I want to give you one last chance to go ahead, just let everybody know where they can find you if they want to follow you, either on your social media, and then also where they can find the book one last time.
Yeah, and I'm a big Instagram guy. I really enjoy it. Okay, so I'm an old man, but I've learned how to use this thing. So I'm at Chris Carminucci on Instagram, and literally, just so you know, I get hundreds, if not thousands, sometimes a month DMs from people just asking questions, and I love answering them. Okay, I do my best to answer them. I'm not going to be anybody's agent and get them a job, but I'm going to give you the best advice possible. And, I'm going to be honest and open with you. So, if you want to follow me on Instagram at Chris Carminucci, again, the book is available on Amazon under Sign Me. And, I appreciate the opportunity to be on the show. It's been a lot of fun. And I love what everybody's doing in independent ball, man. I'm one of you guys. I'm one of these guys that enjoys the grind more than I necessarily always enjoy the big league life. So I really, really, my heart goes out to each and every one of you. Keep grinding, and best of luck to you and to everybody else that's listening.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. I'll be sure I'll tag your Instagram and the Amazon page in the show notes so everybody can find them. But it's all about the grind. The grind is awesome.
Hey, man, grind it out. Grind it out, and again, keep going. I always tell guys, just keep it. If somebody wants you to put on a jersey, put on the damn thing, play. You never know what's going to happen. So good luck to all of you.
There's to be a day where you can't anymore. So got to do it for as long as you can. Exactly. Well, Chris, I appreciate you coming on, and I'm going to sign you off right now.
And that is the end of the interview with Chris Carminucci. I just want to thank Chris again for his time. I appreciate him coming on, and I appreciate him just sharing the knowledge with me, sharing the knowledge with you guys to help all of us maximize our careers, maximize our experiences here in baseball while we're playing this game. Be sure to check him out on Instagram. Be sure to go get his book on Amazon. Just search Sign Me, and it should pop up. If you're having trouble finding it, just send me a message, and I'll help direct you to the right place so you're able to get the book. Yeah, guys, so that is the end of this episode. Be sure that you are subscribed to the podcast on whatever listening platform you are on, whether that's YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Podcast. Is that what it's called? Apple Music, Apple Podcast, something like that, or Stitcher. That way, whenever a new episode does come out, you get a notification for it. Like I said, Posting may be pretty sporadic here going forward, might not be on a set schedule, so be sure you are subscribed so that you will get the notifications whenever a new episode is released. And I just want to thank Chris again for coming on, getting dirty with me on the Down in the Dirt podcast. Until next time, guys.